is righteous. So this morning we spoke about, God is with us. God is with us. And we looked at, if you weren't here this morning, we spoke about God is with you when you go through a valley. A valley is just a difficult time in your life, but it's a time where you can grow and get to know God intimately. A lot of stuff happens in the valley. And then you've got these mountaintop experiences where you see the life God has for you, and it gives you a little bit of hope, and it helps you to move forward as you go through the next valley. But tonight I want to speak to you about not the valley so much, but something that's, to me, in my mind, I would probably say this is a little bit worse than a valley. Just when you think that this morning it's like, valleys are pretty deep and it's sad, and I don't want to be in a valley. And there's nothing worse than a valley. Yes, there is, and it's called a wilderness. I think a wilderness, if I have to compare it to a valley, a wilderness is something that takes a little bit longer to get through. A wilderness experience, when you're in the wilderness, when it's dry and you're alone and it's just this vast space, you tend to feel a little bit disorientated. You're a little bit confused. You're totally alone. And you don't really know what direction to go in. And the sun is beating down on you, and it's just a terrible place to be, the wilderness. It actually brings out the wildness. You can see when someone's in the wilderness, they've got that wild look in their eyes, and it's not a good wild look. It's like a scary type of thing, And I've been in a few wildernesses in my life. I've been through a few wildernesses, and some of you would be able to identify with what I'm going to speak about tonight. And some of you might be in a wilderness situation at the moment, and it really is. It's a terrible place to be. It's a place where you don't really know what's your next step. You don't really know where to go from this point forward. It's different to a valley, because with a valley there's only one way forward. You can only go forward. Because there's a mountain on this side and there's a mountain on this side, you can only go forward. But in a wilderness, you've got all these options. Do I stay in this job that I hate with everything in me? Hey? Do I take this position? Do I stay with this guy? I've been dating him for 3 years. I've been praying that he would propose, and all he does is he plays video games all the time. Have I wasted 3 years of my life? It's a wilderness experience, and you can superimpose this on anything. It's when you get to the place where you really don't know anymore. It's a place of confusion, and it's a place of frustration, and it's a place that's oftentimes very, very lonely. I find that a wilderness experience normally follows directly after a mountaintop experience. So you have this great experience with God. He gives you destiny, He gives you a word, He gives you a promise, and then you go into the wilderness. And you spend quite a bit of time in the wilderness. I see it in the life of Jesus. Jesus had this mountaintop experience. I don't think it gets any better than Jesus' mountaintop experience. He went and He was baptized. When He was baptized, the heavens opened up. A voice from God, from heaven, just said, this is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. And there's a dove. The Holy Spirit came down in the form of a dove, and it just rested on Jesus. And the first thing that happens, the Holy Spirit sends Jesus into the wilderness for 40 days. No food, no water. See, that's a wilderness, right? See, in the valley, you can still eat because the valley is fertile soil. So there's stuff that grows, there's berries and magic mushrooms. All sorts of things. That's available. So you get a little bit of substance in the valley. There's some things that you can eat in the valley, but in the wilderness, there's nothing. There's nothing. You don't get a word from God. You don't get a confirmation. You don't get a promise. You get nothing. See, that's the wilderness. And the word says that Jesus was in the desert for 40 days. And then the devil came to tempt Him. See, a wilderness is a place of... It's a dangerous place because you're weak. You feel like God has forsaken you. You feel like, maybe I should just give in to temptation. Maybe I should just the hell with Amal. I'm just going to do it. See, that's the wilderness experience. And Jesus found Himself there, and the enemy tempted Him and said, don't you want to turn the stones into bread? And, don't you just want to jump off this thing? You want to test God. You want to, you're upset, you're angry. But there's one truth that I want you to walk away with tonight, and hopefully this will sink into your hearts and into your spirit, that when you are in a wilderness situation, it can actually be an incredible blessing if you allow it to be. Because when you are in the wilderness, you are in a place of need. And your deepest need can become a gift when it drives you to fully depend on God. But what often happens in the wilderness experience is we don't depend on God. We try and make our own way. We just sort of choose a direction, and that's what we're going to go in, and that's normally when our lives starts to enter into a downward spiral, because we have not allowed the situation, our incredible need, to really drive us into the presence of God and to depend fully on Him and what He has to say about our lives. And I see this in the life of Elijah. I think this principle is really illustrated in the life of Elijah, and I think there's maybe one or two things that we could learn from him tonight, especially when you find yourself in a wilderness situation. So to give you a little bit of background to Elijah, Elijah had this thing going on with King Ahab. Ahab was a terrible king. He was married to Jezebel. Jezebel was probably a little bit worse than Ahab. You know, if just to sort of get a picture in your mind, it would be like your squinma on steroids. She was bad. So we find that this Elijah, so he would call the king out. He would say, "You are living in sin. And because you are living in sin, I'm going to pray to God, and it's not going to rain for 3 years." So he does it. It doesn't rain for 3 years. I mean, that's pretty powerful, right? Hey? Can you imagine that you had that type of connection with God? Hey? And you can say, "I'm going to pray that God will bless me tremendously for the next 3 years. It's going to be great." Hey? What an incredible position to be in, where you have that type of influence with God. So he prays, and there's no rain for 3 years. And this king actually pursues Elijah. He says, "When I get you, I'm going to kill you. It's the end of the line for you, buddy." But the king can't get hold of Elijah. And Elijah, I mean, he did so many incredible things. He raised dead people from the dead. He could call out, you know, he had this one thing. That was pretty cool. I think that was pretty cool. At one stage, there was this competition between the God of Israel and the God of Elijah, and then the God of Baal, which the Israelites started serving. And there was about 400 Baal prophets at this particular incident. And, you know, they cried out to their God to set they wanted to prove whose God is real. So the Baal prophets built an altar, and Elijah, all by himself, so 400 guys built an altar, and Elijah, man alone, built one altar. And he had to get a few rocks, and he dug a trench around it. He threw water over it. He took a bull. He killed the bull. And he put that bull, man alone, on top of that thing. Now, if you've been hunting, you can just imagine just slaughtering one kudu or something like that. Like, it's a lot of work, right? I mean, you're tired after it. But this guy dug a trench, built an altar, you know, got water from the river down, you know, down at the bottom, carried that water up, because they believed to be closer to God, you had to be on top of a hill, so there wasn't water available. He had to walk down all the time, and then in between he still found the energy to be sarcastic to the Baal prophets, because he would be like, "So where's your God? You guys are cutting yourselves, you're crying out to God to set your altar alight. Is your God on the toilet?" He said that. The Bible is awesome, right? So he's like, "Yeah, you know, is your God on the toilet? You know, does he need paper?" Is he dropping his kids off at the swimming pool? And so he was calling out to these guys in between walking down, up and down. This guy was a monster, man. It was amazing. And he cries out to God, and God answers Elijah with fire from heaven. That the fire is so intense that it consumes the bull, it licks up the water, it burns everything in sight. And the Israelite says, "Yes, the God of Elijah is the God that we should serve." And Elijah says, "Now, for the main event, we're going to kill all 400 Baal prophets." And they bring the 400 Baal prophets and they kill all of them. Now, can you imagine, after a long day, you had these encounters with God. Hey? You built this altar, you did everything, and then you end up killing 400 people. I think that's a tiring day. And then Jezebel says something. Jezebel sends word. I told you she's a terrible squirrel. She sends word to Elijah and says, "Tomorrow, I'm going to kill you. My husband tried, he failed for 3 years, now look at what you've done. Now you've pushed me over the edge. I am going to kill you." And what happens to Elijah? You know the story, right? He totally freaks out and he runs away. In fact, that's sort of like the background story to this, and this is where we come in. Okay, so Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there while he himself went on a day's journey into the wilderness. Now, just something on that. I just sort of saw historically where this sort of happened with the Baal prophets and all the rest of it. Beersheba was about 160 kilometers away. And he ran for his life. Right? He ran into the wilderness. So what is the first thing that you pick up that pushes you into a wilderness? Being tired. He was tired. And he got into this wilderness, and look what happened. He said he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Have you ever been in that place? Hey? We just like, that's it. I've had enough. I can't take it anymore. I just want to die. That's it. Hey? Have you been there? Hey? Where there's this, everything goes well, but then the one thing happens, and it just pushes you over the edge. I mean, you could deal with it up to this point, but then one person says one thing and you just can't take it anymore, and it pushes you over the edge. If you've got children, you know exactly what we're talking about, right? Because everything will be fine. You try and organize a family picnic fun day. It's never fun, by the way. It would be funny if the children weren't there. So you organize this fun day, and you try and get everyone in the car, and you're trying to keep your cool, and you're smiling, and everything is good, and you know, and then by the time that you get to the destination, your child, I'm not mentioning any names, he would be like, you know, he just does something that just pushes you over the edge, and you're like, that's it, we're going home. We drove for 2 hours to get you to, and make it fun for you, but you never want to have fun, do you? Eh? One thing, it just pushes you over the edge. What about the workplace? You've been putting up with some stuff, the bad systems in place, and you've been trying to do the right thing and trying, and you know, and then that one boss comes along and just pushes you over the edge. And then when you talk to people, you just say, you hear this all the time, right? And people just say, I'm just tired. I'm just so tired of all of this. I just can't take this anymore. I'm just so tired. Have you said those words maybe in the past week? Hey? You see, here's the problem with that. Like, you know what? Elijah thought that he had enough. He's just tired. I can't take it anymore. But if tired was your problem, then take a nap. I had 2 naps this afternoon, by the way. I had a nap, and then I woke up and I ate, and then I had another nap. It's a medical condition, highly contagious. If you want some. So, if you are tired, then take a nap. So, I would venture to say that our problem is not that we're tired. That's not why we're on the edge. That's not why we feel, oh God, you know, I'm giving up. I can't take this anymore. You know, I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of my marriage. I'm sick of this business. I'm sick of my job. I'm sick of my life. I'm sick of my kids. I'm sick of our dogs, like Maggie. If anyone wants a black dog called Maggie, see me afterwards. So if something is pushing us over the edge and it's just because we're tired, then we should just take a nap and it will be sorted out. But I want to venture to say that our problem is not that we are tired, but that our souls needs to be restored. What we need is not a nap, what we need is restoration. You see, Psalms 23 says, you know, and the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me besides pastures, and then green pastures. Yeah, you see, you know it. I'm glad. My job here is done. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me beside, green pastures. He makes me lie down between, next to still waters. And then the word says that He restores my soul. See, what we need is restoration. Not necessarily a nap. But a nap helps to restore your soul. It does. I mean, look at the story. This is one of my favorite stories. It's just so crazy, so out there. So he carries on and says, all at once an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. So he got there. He was seriously depressed. God, I want to die. Next moment he wakes up. Angel woke him up. And he said this, get up and eat. He looked around and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again, much like that's a principle. In preparation for the message, that's what I did today. I lay down, I woke up, I ate, and then I went to sleep again. And the thing is, I had to cook my own food. So he ate and drank and then he lay down again. So sometimes we have to rest. You need to look after yourself physically. You need to exercise. You need to do something. You need to eat properly. You need to eat healthy. You need to keep hydrated. Because the way your physical body feels is going to affect